Welcome to Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. As we've covered on this show in the past, school board meetings have become more divisive than ever. In the Inland Empire, we are not immune, with two of our school districts making national news over their arguments. Just to be clear, public schools, teachers, school districts, and parents, local legislators, all of them are tired of the arguments over how to educate our kids in this day and age. But now, an old program has been given a new breath of life and is successfully halting the arguments in over 8,000 U.S. schools, and now here in the Inland Empire. The San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools office is even being asked by districts across the country to help them introduce the program. The office they're calling is that of Jennifer Gateley, who is the Director of Learning Systems and Supports. She joins us now by phone. Jennifer, welcome to Education Insight.
I'm happy to be here today.
We're delighted to have you. Could you start off by explaining, for those of us that may not completely understand, what is a community school?
Of course. Community schools are sometimes difficult to define, so we lean into our state agencies. They've done such an amazing job of trying to refine our understanding about this broad topic of community schools and what it looks like really in school transformation. So the California Department of Education, they define a community school as any public school that serves pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. At its core, community schools are anchored in community partnerships. They support improved academic outcomes, but more than that, they engage all of our partners, families, and students in a focus on whole child, family development, and community development as well. So what we love to say is that any school can truly be a community school. In essence, it's a hub of its neighborhood. They unite families, educators, community partners, really working together to develop improvement strategies so that our students are thriving, but so are the families and the communities that are anchored to that school community as well.
Okay, so you've been quoted as saying that these schools very well may transform our whole educational system in California. Jennifer, what makes you so supportive of this model?
Well, it's very easy to get behind the aspirational vision that's being put forth in the community schools model. It's a vision of change, and as educators, we are here to make a difference. And I truly believe in the power of education to transform the lives of our children. Community schools imperatively focuses on our ability to create spaces for learning, for development, for enrichment, where all children, not just some children, not just a few children, but where all children thrive. And as educators, as parents, as families, as community members, how can we not get behind that? But the reality is, when we talk about transformation and looking at community schools, the reality is that we can't serve today's students in yesterday's school model. COVID has taught us that for sure, if nothing else, that transformation is absolutely essential. So community schools gives us this undeniable opportunity right now in this moment of time to think outside of the box about how we traditionally engage in school leadership and to ask the questions that need to be asked so that we can truly determine together how we're going to move forward from what our schools are today to what our students need them to be for tomorrow. So community schools is human-centered, it's child-focused, it's what the core of education is inherently about. It opens the door for us to mobilize resources and funding and partnerships in a way that we've never done before, to look at everything we have collectively and to see how can we engage cross-sector in a shared vision and really look at the entire educational system, not just TK-12, not just elementary, middle school, high school, but truly from cradle to classroom, from classroom to career and look at that collectively together and say, how can we redesign what we're doing as isolated, dare I even say antiquated systems, and truly transform what we're doing in education so that we can improve the outcomes for children. So it's exciting, it's inspirational, it's empowering. I feel like I've waited 26 years of my educational career for this moment in time, for the courageous leadership and the vision of really doing something different for our children.
Yeah. Well, folks behind the community schools movement, right here in the Inland Empire even, often use the phrase, which is even a mantra of sorts, whole child, whole school, whole community. What does that mean? And how does it differ from the educational approach that many of us are used to or even experienced in our own youth?
In education, we do love our mantras, I have to admit. And this one is definitely one that we are leading forward with, not just in vision, but in the work that comes off of that vision. Community schools, as I said, are transforming the ways that we traditionally do school. It's allowing us to become full service centers for the community. And in doing that, we're opening the doors on school, not just to students, but children, families, and communities, not just on school days, but all day and every day. And we're creating school campuses where the work that we do, the learning that we experience is interconnected across sectors from education to industry to workforce and beyond. So as we look at that mantra of whole child, whole school, whole community, and we really break down, like, what are we trying to do when we embrace that in our community schools movement? The vision for whole child recognizes that student success in the classroom, it's connected to their overall well-being. We cannot educate the mind of a child without developing their heart and soul at the same time and responding to the holistic needs that are wrapped around heart and mind, whether it's physical, nutritional, mental health, addressing the challenges and the needs of students that often get in the way of learning. That's the whole child piece. Looking at that whole school approach, recognizing that as we're creating school environments, that those school environments need to be responsive and restorative to the students and the families and communities that they represent. That we look at that from the inside out and that the school is a reflection of the community that it serves. And we need to be unified, responsive, restorative, building trust and relationship and connections with those that we are engaging with every single day, from the classroom to the community. And then looking at that community as we swing to that whole community approach and really embracing a leadership imperative where we recognize that the education sector is inherently linked to the economic sector, and bringing in our industry partners, our community-based organizations to say that we're preparing the workforce for tomorrow, the citizens for the future, the leaders of the next generation. And that's a big call just for education. And so we need that cross-sector partnership. We need our whole community to not just receive the benefits of our education, but to come into our classrooms and educate together, with and for us, because that's where that continuity will be. So that's how we take those ideas and we bring them in from community to school to classroom. And we embrace that core holistic approach. It's a vision for change. It's also a vision for unity. And I think that's where you see the mobilizing efforts of community schools.
You're listening to Education Insight. Jennifer, these business owners and community members that are affected by what's going on at the schools in their neighborhoods, when they are asked to come in and actually participate and help make decisions about what's happening at the school, are they shocked? Are they reluctant? Or are they excited about participating?
I would say it's a little bit of all of the above. It certainly is a mental model shift, a paradigm shift. That's that traditional model of I'm going to pull into the driveway and drop my kiddo off at the drop-off line, and I'll see you at the end of the day. And that traditional approach is really challenged in the community schools model, where we say, join us. Don't just leave them with us. Stay with us. Engage with us. Be a part of our school community, not just in presence and engagement, but in design, in planning, in impact, and in collaboration. And all of that takes a lot of trust building, a lot of communication, a lot of not just leaning in to families and community partners, but also to listening to what they're saying. What does the workforce need from the education sector? And then how do we respond accordingly in our classrooms so that we're creating that continuum of educational impact to economic prosperity? How are we doing that in a way that families are saying that feels like my culture, that feels like me, like us, so that they can see where their voice and their values are represented in the education and the future that we're creating together with their children? So lots of trust building, lots of communication, and lots of doors opening up to say, instead of talking about what this may look like, join us. Move those coffee with the principal sessions out of the multipurpose rooms and into the classrooms, out to the playgrounds, out to the communities so that we can see and experience together what we're creating through community schools.
Lately, we've seen so many issues where parents in the Inland Empire and elsewhere are angry with the teachers, are angry with the school or the district over policies and school rules. I assume that when you bring them into the room to help make the decisions going forward, that it would soften that a great deal because they feel that they were part of the process and they had a say.
It does, truly. And I can even highlight, my own experiences as a principal at what we would now consider a community school, and having to bridge a cultural divide, a linguistic divide, a socioeconomic divide. There's so much diversity that's present between our education sector, our community sector, and then just the organizations and agencies that are impacting that work as well, that when you tear down the walls, when you open up the doors, when you build trust and say, don't just join me, families, to engage with me, join me to participate with me, and ultimately to dream with me, to sit down with parents and say, what are your dreams for your child? It starts off like that, asking my parents when I was a principal, tell me about your children. Tell me what your hopes and dreams are for your child. Tell me if you had the most ideal school setting that could support, nurture, and grow your child so that they could achieve those dreams that every parent has for their children someday. What would that school look like? Now join me, parents. Now join me in making that happen. Let's do this together, not for you, but let's do this together with you. Those conversations, that leadership approach, as we say, it's humbling, it's vulnerable, but it's also so empowering, not just for the families, but for us as school principals, as school leaders, for us as well. It's a game changer, truly.
More of our conversation with Jennifer Gateley of the San Bernardino County Superintendent's Office in just a moment. This is Education Insight. Welcome back to Education Insight. Today we're discussing the community schools model. It brings parents, educators, community leaders, local businesses, and nonprofit leaders into the decision-making process for educating kids in our own communities. Our guest is Jennifer Gateley. She works with the San Bernardino County Superintendent's Office. Jennifer, this community schools model, It's actually an example of collective impact, like we're now seeing introduced all over this region. For those that are unfamiliar with the term, collective impact is when we bring people from our community that are not part of our organization, whatever that might be, schools or otherwise, but who are affected by the choices made in that organization. And we bring them right into the meeting to help us fix tough problems so that everyone is happy with the outcomes. That's what this is, isn't it?
It truly is. The community schools movement is an educational effort that we try to improve the learning outcomes for students, knowing that we see community-based outcomes improve. We see economic outcomes improve. Thriving schools result in safe communities, prosperous businesses. We like to say that we're trying to close the mobility cycle. When we look at things collectively, together, and we can see the mutual benefits from education to industry, we can create spaces where families want to stay. They want to live, learn, work, and play from cradle to career and make it a generational shift that improves not just the trajectory of our children, but the grandparents of the children yet to be. And that's truly a heartwarming effort when everybody can come around the table together and see that potential.
There are schools here in our Inland Empire who are talking a lot about how they feel about it. And more often than not, I'm hearing that they're very happy because they're using it to solve problems like school safety and student mental health, sustainable school funding, even educator workforce development. And while that's so great, are there types of problems that the community schools model can't solve?
Well, the short answer to that, I think, is yes. The community school strategy can solve school-based problems. And I think that we're seeing that in our early adopting agencies that have implemented the community school strategy. And I think likewise, the answer is no. I'm going to be completely aspirational and say, I don't imagine a problem either here or in the future that this community school strategy wouldn't have the ability to at least impact, if not completely mitigate. And this is why, because the community school strategy being such a game changer, and I know I keep focusing on the word strategy because that's the core. It's not a program. It's not a placement. Those things that we say tend to run, it's educational course, right? Here today, gone tomorrow. The community schools is a school improvement strategy. So to that end, it continues to evolve through the efforts of design and responsiveness to identifying in the school community, yes, what is your vision for what this school can and should be, but what's your current reality? What problems of systemic proportions are in the way that are barriers to you accomplishing the vision that you have set forth with your community to improve student learning outcomes? Let's tackle that problem. Let's identify what is needed in this community. What is the root cause of chronic absenteeism, workforce development, school safety, all of those things that are sometimes catastrophic barriers to student learning and school and community success. Let's look at those problems, those needs, and then let's identify together not just the assets that are present in the school, but in the district, the community, and the region as well. Let's funnel with intention and targeted collective efforts all of those assets to address that root cause problem that is getting in the way of student success. And then as we do that, let's make sure we're looking at that through an equity lens, a transformation lens, a future ready lens, so that we're evolving in that allocation of resources and services and support so that as problems tend to evolve or new problems emerge, solve one, find another, that we're continuing to be able to respond to the needs of our students and our communities long-term over time. And I think that's where I can't imagine that strategy. As long as we're staying focused, our vision is student success. So elevate whatever barriers become present, we would have never elevated COVID 40 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But now that we have the community school strategy, root cause down to what's getting in the way. And now let's all work collectively to leverage everything we've got together in the system and beyond to address that problem and move forward together.
This is Education Insight. To hear us talking about it, it may sound like community schools are something that's just going on in the Inland Empire, but it's happening in California. It's actually being tried throughout the United States. And there are even historical roots to this model. Could you tell us about that?
I can, yes. A brief history lesson on community schools, although it does feel like to us in California, it's emerged very quickly. All of a sudden, here is the community schools movement. But yeah, reminding ourselves that the community schools movement is not just a local or state initiative. It actually is part of a national initiative. And it has deep historical roots all the way back to the history and the education, the philosophies of John Dewey when we were imagining schools as social centers and places for democratic change. So you're going all the way back, and then you're watching this evolution, this philosophical perspective really come to light in our schools, really over the century, where we see different education, community, industry leaders working across the nation to build schools over time that become centers for education and for community life and epicenters ultimately for social change and intervention. That's been happening centuries long in this conversation, and again, across the nation. But now here we are in California, fast forward 2020, across the nation, we have this COVID pandemic, and we have this need for social responsiveness. We have this need for social change to do something different because of the disparities that were happening with the educational access when we closed down almost every school across the nation during COVID, and then asked ourselves, how do we do school without school? We can't do this by ourselves, right?
Right.
And so we again return to those philosophies of, then how do we do this together? How do we engage cross-sector partners? How do we look at things that we're doing differently and use this as not just an obstacle, but an opportunity to change the way that we do education? So in 2021, California joined the movement. California approved legislation, $4.1 billion to initiate the California Community Schools Partnership Program, joining the rest of the nation that was already implementing full-service community schools initiatives under federal funding. And here comes California with one of the largest educational legislation packages that we've ever seen, really standing behind the community schools initiative and the potential of saying we're dedicated. We're dedicated as a state, as a nation, to continue to do whatever it takes to reimagine and redesign schools. And we don't have a choice post-pandemic. So in this historical context and the national context, community schools is not new. It's a school improvement strategy. It's a collective impact approach. But truly, going all the way back to John Dewey, it's an educational movement of social reform. And we're excited to see that come to life in the context and the culture of California.
Your team is actually helping schools far beyond San Bernardino County to adapt to this model.
We are. My team here at the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, as you said, is the County Office of Education lead for the Southern Inland Regional Technical Assistance Center. There are 8 technical assistance centers in the state of California. So my team is supporting schools, districts, and communities in San Bernardino County, Riverside, Inyo, and Mono counties, working alongside their County Office of Education staff as well. Together, our team, this regional approach of these 4 county regions, we are the largest geographic footprint in the state of California. We are a region of regions. And so we appreciate our county office colleagues as well as our partners that are working together with our team to really respond to the schools that we serve together. Together, we serve over 1,100 schools, 825,000 students across 65 school districts. We support and serve desert, mountain, urban, suburban, rural. The diversity is something we're very proud of in the Southern Inland region. And our communities know that our community, our leadership community here at San Bernardino County, is here to work alongside them in their efforts.
If you're interested in learning more about the community schools model, there is more information on the Education Insight page of the Growing Inland Achievement website. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us today on Education Insight.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
The state of California convicts and houses more inmates than any other state. That's ahead of Texas. And each year, California spends over $14 billion to house, feed, transport, and provide health care to those inmates. That expense is growing, and it's hurting the economics of our state. While the governor's office is working on widely publicized new programs to help remedy the issue, so is the University of California, Riverside. They've begun teaching bachelor's degree level courses at Norco State Prison to provide those inmates with skills that will hopefully help them get back to work after being released and never return to prison. Also surprising, the professors teaching those inmates are building the program mostly without pay. Join us for the next Education Insight when we'll be discussing the Lifted Prison Education Program. I'm Lacey Kendall. Until then, have a great week.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor.
And our production engineer is Tyler Veazey.
And Lacey Kendall is your host. Support is provided by College Futures Foundation.
Some technical assistance provided by the College of Arts and Letters at Cal State San Bernardino.
Growing Inland Achievement. Working together for inland education and economic success.
Join us again next week for Education Insight.